Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the Douglas School Committee to order on March 4th, and we're in the Budget Subcommittee for contract negotiations, and this is open negotiations.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Did you want to finish?
You can
Didn't-
finish.
Yeah, didn't
Just
mean to-
wanted
No, I think that was great. I think everybody gets it.
All right,
That's
okay.
fine.
I
Yeah,
didn't have an intention for you to be cut off there.
all
so-
good. Prompt is important. I know last time that we started with just kind of a go-around introductions. Do you want to do that again?
Sure, yeah, I think that's a great way to start, just to reactivate.
Okay. Why don't we start at the end and we just circle around?
Hi, Greg Rosenthal, Director of Special Education and Student Services for Douglas Public Schools.
Courtney Keegan, Business and Operations Manager.
Beth Bergstrom, School Committee Member.
Heather Moore, School Committee Chair.
Paul Vieira, Superintendent.
Greg Pagnini, Council.
Matt Wojcik, Town Administrator.
April Vassar, ABA Elementary.
Stephanie Gilbert, ABA High School.
James Kobielka, MTA Representative for the Union.
Jonna Peliquin, paraprofessional of our ADC at Douglas Middle School.
Ellen Randoni, Paraprofessional, Douglas Elementary School.
I'm Nicole Dagnalt. I'm a paraprofessional in the Flex Ed Department at the primary school.
Great.
Do you mind if I jump in, or, yeah, okay.
Go ahead.
I know that you had obviously presented some initial proposals last time, thank you. We had a chance to go through those. So we have responses prepared, and we also have some initial proposals as well. Don't know if there's anything on your side you want to kind of talk about at the outset first.
Yeah, we've got some additional proposals, but I think we'd really like to hear your responses first. You know, last time, we kind of just straight out put up sort of our most important issues as per our conversations with the membership. And those really were overwhelmingly both working towards a living wage and ensuring that there are staff safety items in the contract. So hearing back on those would be fantastic.
Okay. So we have a handout that I think maybe if you don't mind for the group, and then I will kind of go through and provide a little bit more background on sort of the reasoning behind some of them, or most, if not all of them.
Thanks.
I'm just going to jump right in if I can, because I know you guys just got handed it, but it's probably easier for me to do some talking to kind of put color behind it. So in terms of the staff safety and health proposal, kind of writ large in terms of a response to this, and you'll see that we're rejecting each component of it, and I'll identify as we go through it kind of some more detail for each of these paragraphs. But one, as kind of like a broad strokes reaction, a lot of this, if not all of it, we see as basically management rights, in the sense that this is an operational issue that's something for the district to have to manage. And another kind of overarching concern with some of the nature of the proposals in here is that it raises a number of personnel / confidentiality issues with respect to both individuals, employees, and the kind of information that a union is allowed access to, which is not, for example, FERPA-related information regarding certain students. So it raises a number of concerns. So I just sort of like, put a stake in the ground there, I suppose, for lack of a better way of putting it. More kind of granularly, there are other responses that we have or sort of talked through when we were looking at this. So for example, in 1A, there's an idea here of having members report in writing to the building principal, or just a reporting system. And we already have that, we think, sort of in place already. And not something necessarily that we think we would need to codify in any event. For the log of reports, that's something that we also have as well. So again, not something that we need, also in addition to the other things that I just mentioned, that we feel as though it needs to be reduced to the contract. For 1B, and so that's why, and I will just say, because I think for ease of purpose, both for the people that have this, and also folks here who may be tuning in, that the formal responses are reject of 1A, 1B, and 1C. I'll get to 1D when I get there. So for 1B, we're rejecting that as well. There's already in the district the benefit of being able to tap into accumulated sick leave or personal time. So this is, something over and above that. In any event, we feel sick time is appropriately used for to begin with. For C, I gotta look over to my actual. Oh, I'm sorry. For C, I think I said reject, and I meant that we had a counter for that. So we're open to discussing this one. And as you see that we do have a counter there. It's largely what 1C was as proposed, but with some modifications. So it reads, the committee will reimburse a DESPA staff member for the fair market cost to replace or repair any clothing or other personal property damaged or destroyed in the course of their scheduled workday on district property as a result of an unintended physical act from a student. Members must have a pre-approval or have pre-approval on a fair market value of the item to being reimbursed. The superintendent's decision on fair market value is final. Kind of just explain some thought processes there. So I don't think it was the intent of the union to sort of open this up beyond certain unforeseen incidents, right? So in the way that it was described, we were talking about sort of interactions with students as opposed to the two of you bump into each other in the hallway, which I don't think was ever the intent, right? So we modified the language to reflect that, but what we notionally have an issue with is the idea that, using, for example, assault and battery type language, which typically or could be viewed as having some kind of an intent. We reject that notion, right, that any kid would ever have that intent. And I don't think that was the intent on your part, but we want to be sure that that's something that we're clear about, right? Because sort of as a fundamental aspect of this is we're not blaming the kids, right, who would have done something like this. So in any event, something that we're open to discussing, and we're providing that for your consideration. On 1D, so we're holding on that. James, a question for you.
Yep.
Is your understanding that the language that's proposed here in 1D is basically what's in the statute?
No. So the Small Necessities Leave Act, our understanding per the statute is that the district gets to make the determination.
Like FMLA?
Right, of
Yeah.
whether or not a member, well, a little bit different than FMLA, of whether or not a member gets to use sick time or not. And we've had some cases, so this proposal is about the Small Necessities Leave Act, which is a short leave, and it's generally, if someone has to go take their kid to a doctor's appointment, if they need to go see a kid for an IEP meeting, they are guaranteed leave. However, as it currently stands, the district determines what type of leave is taken. So a member is essentially told to use personal time or sick time. We've had issues where some members, because of a low balance in one or the other, would actually prefer to just take the leave unpaid, or at least prefer the ability to choose whether they are taking the leave paid or which benefit it pulls from. So that's the proposal, that if someone takes it, superintendent doesn't say, well, your hour must be deducted from sick time. The unit member gets to say either, I want to use an hour of sick, or I just want to take an hour of pay reduction, whatever fits their needs specifically.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. So we're going to hold on that one, sort of the response. We'll think about that one some more.
Can we go?
Did you?
Well, can we go back to 1A and 1B for a second?
Can I just ask a clarifying question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, please
First time
do.
doing all this, so I don't want to do anything wrong. But is there a specific amount of time that DESPA's looking for? Like, are you talking about a couple of hours to go to your kid's doctor's appointments? Are you talking about 3 days? Like, is there kind of...
Sorry.
Do it.
Yeah, I get the question. I can jump in as well.
If you've
but
got the
I'm
numbers
sure
on your head, go for
so
it.
for anyone's purposes here, the Small Necessity Leave Act, the idea is that you can take certain time off for, I'll give you an example, a child's dentist appointment or something that may not necessarily be, over the course of the entire day. It's works similarly to FMLA. There's a notification provision, I think, of 7 days.
And it's for up to 24 hours over the course of an entire year.
Right.
So this is not at all for long-term medical stuff. This is just like, okay, I need to
One-offs.
leave for an hour early 12 times this year because that's the only way I can get my kid to the orthodontist.
And I
It's
want to
that
come
kind-
back after and continue my day, or I don't want to come back after and continue my day, depending on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it
in the
would,
middle of the
Employer,
day or
and
something.
if I'm correct, James, I don't know if you have it in front of you, or Greg, if
Yeah.
you know off the top of your head, the employee needs to be able to qualify for FMLA in order to get the
Yes, there are
SMLA, correct?
there are qualifications to getting SNLA, yeah. And I think it's, if memory serves, it's the same as FMLA in terms of the hours or
Yeah,
whatever it
I'd
is,
have to
so.
double check, but
Yeah,
there is a
But I
qualifying
believe that's the
thing.
case, yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this is, just to be really clear, this is not saying, we want people to be able to just take a 1 month leave of absence whenever they want. It's just if they're taking an hour or two,
They have to go to their kid's IEP meeting, or if
Yeah.
they have to go to the doctor's,
Yeah.
or, okay. Thank you.
Did you,
Welcome.
you had said something about wanting to go back to 1A or 1B?
yeah, so 1A sort of had two parts to it, right? It was that staff members will report when they get injured, and that secondly, if they get injured during the school day and they need to seek medical attention off-site, they won't have sick time docked for doing so. We have requested, what the district's view of the scope of actual injuries looks like in the schools. We haven't received that information. So I hear you saying that a tracking system exists. Will you provide that information with us?
You had made a request for that?
I believe in the last session, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I think we had had a discussion in previous sessions that that's part of HIPAA, and employees' personnel files are not subject
Yeah.
to just open dissemination. I know,
That's,
Greg, you can-
yeah, no, that's my immediate concern with that. And I think you're reminding me.
Yeah.
Because I do think that came out of the last session. I think that's what kind of road that we went down.
So to the extent that a student's file might be involved, and perhaps some very specific details, sure, but generally speaking, the union does have the right to, if not all of the details around staff injuries, at least a list of, we believe 10 injuries happened in March, 5 injuries happened in February, this is generally what they were. And even baked into FERPA, again, in my understanding, like, there is specifically, labor organizations have the right to that. So we're not asking for people's medical records, but it is hard to hear you say that a system for tracking injuries exists, but the union that represents the workers can't have any of the information around it. That's not appropriate, and that really doesn't give us anything to go on as far as how to make sure that we're addressing injuries and we're sure that members are actually reporting their injuries to the district.
So you're looking for March, 3 DESPA members, injury. That's it.
If that's where we have to start, yeah.
Well,
Building?
This
Yeah.
might be most easily solved by you and I having a discussion outside of this, where, because I think this is going to be a little bit of the devil's in the details in terms of what information you're looking for, what information we have,
I
what's
think-
protected, et cetera.
Our concern here is safety, period. Staff primarily, students most definitely. I don't think any of us need to know who or what student.
Yeah.
We're looking at, based on it, say, per building, perhaps, that
That's what I mean.
in
Yeah,
March
exactly, right.
or whatever the case may be at that point. And I completely understand the HIPAA, and I wouldn't want to jeopardize that for any staff member or a student in the system. But I think there's been, an increase in injuries. I think it's probably decreased a little bit now, it seems to have, possibly. But I think we're just trying to understand, we don't have the figures. We're trying to understand all of it, and that our contract is the best contract it can be for our staff.
Yep. Yep. Thanks.
Thanks, Jenna.
and just going back to 1A, you want 1A broken out basically to 1A1 and 1A2.
Well, it's two parts of it, we're looking for both, and we don't necessarily agree that all of this is managerial rights, right? But I mean, one way or another, we should have documented somewhere, like this pretty much common sense expectation that if a staff member's injured, they should report it.
Correct.
And if that already exists in school committee policy and we missed it, we'd love to see it, but we view the contract as the appropriate place for that, especially because as we're getting new staff, they read through their contract, they look at it. They should be able to say, okay, great, if I get hurt, I tell my supervisor, and again, we'll probably come back to this as we move forward, that if they need to go out of the building for medical attention on that day, they shouldn't have to worry about whether or not they have enough sick time. They're injured and they should get treatment.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. And for 1B, we proposed that if a staff member goes on workers' compensation, which in itself is an entire process, that they will get paid the difference between their workers' compensation claim and their regular salary for a period. The teachers have this benefit. For this unit, it's kind of extra important because the baseline wages are so low anyway, that just taking 50% or 60% of, your $20 an hour or less wage is already a pretty big hardship. And I was a little bit confused. Did you say that they had the ability to draw from other days for this?
Well, already in the staff member may use their sick time to compensate for lost wages.
What if it's already gone?
Well, right, I understand that might be a possibility.
That's
but-
the problem.
but It's not necessarily something that you would automatically have, which is the ability to apply the sick time.
When we've had a staff member that's used up all their personal time, all their sick time, and still is out and on workman's comp, and was hurt on the job, doing their job, that's where this one's coming from.
Okay.
Because sick time's only accrual of one a month. If you break a bone, can't walk, that's gonna take more than just a day of that month.
And not only that, we're still seeing the COVID and staff being out for 5 days or whatever the case may be, or
I mean,
We're required to take the whole 5 days. We don't get a choice.
and the combination of working with students who are sometimes at risk for more aggressive outbursts, and having a very low sick time accrual, and having a very low base rate, means that if a para in their first year or two gets injured at work, they're facing an immense financial hardship.
yeah.
And again, this benefit is something that the teachers have, or very close to what they have already. So, if there is something else that allows people to actually get wages when they're disabled on the job, we'd be interested in discussing that. But again, it's, when you get 10 sick days a year, one COVID case could pull 5 of those, saying that they might just have, people do not have the days to then get back wages if they're injured on work. So it's just, we'll have to come back to it, but it's disappointing to hear that as just a flat rejection. It doesn't solve the issue of keeping people's bills paid if they get injured on the job.
All right, let me go to number 2, environmental reporting and healthy buildings. So we're rejecting 2A. And again, we feel this is, similar to 1 in the sense that it's really more than anything than a management rights issue and operations. Similarly, that there's also kind of potential personnel issues that this gives rise to.
So, so 2A, B, and C were all about, like, like unhealthy worksite issues, essentially, saying that the district will report to union if there's some sort of issue at the worksite. Union members will report if they see any issue without fear of reprisal, and then that a worksite will be monitored, yearly. I guess I see where the monitoring yearly might hit that managerial procedure, but what's the problem with putting in the contract that there will be two-way communications if there's like a leak or an asbestos issue or something like that.
Well, I think it's another example of something that doesn't need to be in the contract, right? I mean, I think certainly if someone saw something that they thought was a hazard, I think it would be the expectation, desire for someone to bring that forward and say, hey, look, there's X over here that we got to check out. So, I think it actually, you hope that that would happen, but not something that you would need to have in the contract. It's, kind of a commonplace isn't the right word, right? But a sort of happenstance type of occurrence that you would just hope is a conversational piece, as opposed to something that you'd have to go to the contract and say, well, what happens if I notice something that I think is somewhat hazardous?
So how is the district letting new employees know that that's the expectation?
An expectation that if you saw something that you would say something?
That if you see, water damage on a tile, you should let a custodian know?
I mean, I think that's a fairly common sense approach, that if there was something that someone saw that they thought needed some kind of a work ticket or something to be remedied, you would just bring that to admin's attention.
And I'm not disagreeing with you on that point, but we sort of framed this whole thing last time, especially by talking about the fact that folks are coming in and out of these positions. It's difficult to hold people in these positions, in part because of the wages. And you're saying that there's a common sense expectation that folks will report a specific thing. How is the district currently putting that expectation out to new staff, especially?
Yeah, I don't know if that's something that would be done in an orientation or something along those lines. I'm not sure I've heard of that in any orientation, that it's something that you would tell new staff, hey, if you see something that you find, that is hazardous, that here's the protocol.
Do you guys get orientations right now?
We have 2 days in the contract
For new.
We have 2 days in the contract of PD for new staff to come in. I know we run something administratively with it. I think this year we we gave the union an opportunity to speak to staff members of it. So it could come up at new teacher orientation for it, although those schedules are pretty packed. But there's a lot of stuff that goes into the day-to-day running up of the school that obviously you can't cover every aspect of it. I know being at the middle school, we constantly have teachers coming to Bob's office. From what I see, there's a spill in the hallway, the bubble is not working, we're out of hand towels in the bathroom, and I know we've never had any professional development around that. So I haven't seen an issue, nor has been reported to me that there's been an issue with communication of people feeling comfortable sharing a hazard with us when it comes up.
What happens if somebody gets hired in the middle of the year? That would be the principal.
It would be the principal who...
It would be responsible for doing that?
And it's just, with everything you're saying, if it's a small enough thing that it should be commonplace, again, it's just sort of confusing that you don't then aren't willing to put in the contract, because then it's just there. People can read it. We don't have to dig into this one any further, but...
Okay. So for 2B, so we're rejecting that one. I think the district already does ventilation or, testing. Again, not something that we feel needs to be codified. Happy to provide reports that we have. If that's something that you guys are looking for, we can provide that to you guys. Not something that we think we need to put into a contract that we're providing to you, as a matter of course. But if you'd like that, certainly happy to provide it. And on to C, similar response. We're rejecting this because we just don't think that this is, something that needs to be in the contract. There's language in here about a staff member echoing that a staff member, shouldn't be subject to restraint, interference, coercion, et cetera, for filing a report. And certainly we agree, and that's the law. I mean, that's basically, out of 150E. Not something that we think we would need to put into, or should put into a contract. Staff safety equipment, 3A and 3B, we're rejecting these. And in terms of the issue of PPE, if folks want to request PPE, we're happy to provide PPE. That's how we sort of see this. you know, if there's something that they would like to discuss in terms of, hey, I would like this PPE, yeah, let's have a conversation, and we're happy to provide it. Not something that we need to necessarily have in there.
Well, I've never seen PPE, to be honest with you. The only PPE I've ever seen was when we had COVID, and they
That's when it
gave us
came up,
face
largely.
shields.
Yeah.
By PPE, I believe that what we're looking for PPE was guards or whatever for the staff that are working. And not being overly familiar with that, they're not just kids' soccer shin guards, are they?
Do you mean like the arm guards?
Yeah.
Well, that's what, am I correct that, so we put in a few requests for PPE, and am I correct that someone in the unit got like a pair of kids' soccer shin guards as their district?
Yeah, to get them through, I thought, but I was hoping that that was just what that was, is that was just to get them through until PPE was ordered for them.
I know
Yeah.
that, Greg, you want to?
Sure. So we did, as a temporary, just a protective, we did, I went out and bought the shin guards for the forearms, and for the shins.
For the shins.
And we are working with a vendor right now to get more of a formal PPE, in sizing it up and making it available, but it will be available. And I believe my predecessor previously did order some guards PPE, because this is the vendor I'm working with currently. So that is something that the district will have,
Okay.
absolutely, in each building.
So, I mean, thank you, and that's good to hear that, you know, because both the wonderful and the difficult aspect of public schools, of course, right, is that we support all students. And here in Douglas, we have some students who have injured staff pretty seriously. And we need to be able to keep supporting them, and having appropriate PPE, arm guards, shin guards, face shields as necessary is critical. So, thank you. I will say too that this is also, you know, a requirement now that OSHA standards affect public sector, to have appropriate PPE, to have it be clean, to have it be sanitary. And if this is not in the contract somewhere and separate from the grievance procedure, that essentially means that if there's an issue with PPE being supplied, a union member would have to go to the state, have to go to the Department of Labor Services to file a complaint regarding a lack of PPE, instead of it being a contractual thing and a grievance conversation. So that was part of why we wanted to have it here, both for clarity and to make it so that if we're problem solving on a local level, and we're not trying to get, you know, like a 6-month DLS investigation just to make sure people have shin guards. So if the district has other ideas for what would, and you know, this will be probably a conversation after caucus, what would be a way to put PPE in the contract that would hit both sides here? We just think it would be a lot cleaner if that was sort of the problem-solving mechanism.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
So I think that leaves living wage. I mean, we are rejecting the living wage proposal that you had, and we're working on a counter. So we'll have that for you. It's just, you know, formal reject, but. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped over the annualized. Yeah, thank you. I should mention the annualizing. So yes, so we're also rejecting the annualization proposal. I know you had provided, James, some materials, which I had read through. So there's a couple of things there. There are a number of issues that it raises with respect to kind of the how this would happen, and then, but I think where we are on this is, from what we have seen, it doesn't apply to members, it applies to other folks, and it's not something that we think would apply to these members in terms of the legality portion of it.
How does that change? Because actually, it's been proven that when people are paid an annually scheduled out pay, it's actually cheaper for admin on your side, the payroll and all that. So it actually would save the town money. And it's easier for us to budget.
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
I come from a finance background.
That's good.
We can bring it up next time, yeah.
Do you want to?
So it's,
That wasn't any part of the decision-making process. We're not
Well,
looking
that's
for
true.
something cheaper or anything having to do with that. It has to do with the legality of it only.
so,
I don't understand.
I don't
so,
understand the legality.
Do you have the
yeah,
statute?
what is the issue? And I'm so, for
Yeah,
folks who are
so-
here who don't understand,
Yeah.
currently, staff get paid hourly, you work a number of days, work a number of hours in a week, you get paid in the next pay period. Annualizing means you take your total hourly wages expected over the course of the year, divide that up evenly, so you get an even paycheck that's a little bit lower than your overall regular paycheck every pay cycle. And it means that you don't have periods where people get, only paid for 1 or 2 days. And furthermore, prior attorney generals have said that it is fine for paras. I would say probably about half, if not more, of the MTA-represented school districts in the state do this, and there have been no issues with it. And I mean, if the district is saying that you don't want to because you don't want to, that's fine.
Well, no, that has nothing to do with it.
It's not illegal.
Absolutely legality. Absolutely legality.
So what is the issue?
Under the law, paras and ABAs are considered to be non-exempt employees. As such, they are required to be paid in a timely manner for their hours worked accordingly. Furthermore, Chapter 71, Section 40, what you are referring to, James, is, I know you're calling it annualized pay, but actually what that is under the law is called deferred payment. And pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 71, Section 40, that is only allowed to be done for, under this law for teachers and administrators, because they're exempt employees and don't have to be paid, for their hours worked in a timely manner. There are exempt employees and there are non-exempt.
And I was non-exempt, and we still did this at the bank. And if somebody took vacation time or sick time or
But
pay
we're-
they weren't getting, they just deducted it from that
We're a
paycheck.
public sector, we're required to comply with Massachusetts general laws. Absolutely every single thing we do in the public sector, we have, Mass general laws for.
that
We're
would
not
be the
private
difference.
sector. That's private sector.
Yeah, I think that's the
so-
big difference there. Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. We are not private sector, we don't have to, private sector has nothing to do with us in any way, shape, or form.
So this is
So,
a couple of
This
years.
is Mass General Law, Chapter 71, Section 4.
Sure.
Are you looking at letter to Nauset?
Yes.
Yeah.
Letter to Nauset basically says, in that attorney's view, that she believes that it's a bargainable issue. That's all.
Under the Deputy Chief Jocelyn Jones, under the Fair Labor Division.
That's her
of Martha
opinion,
Coakley.
yeah. That's all that letter to Nauset
Right,
says.
and her opinion is that MGL 150E and the Wage Act allow employees to agree to an altered pay schedule to give meaning to both that exception in the Wage Act and the right of the association to represent its unit members in collective bargaining with regards to the terms and conditions of employment. It must be inferred that the association is authorized to bargain about the schedule of wage payments on behalf of the unit members. Further, in this scenario, the collective bargaining agreement, as executed by the employee's exclusive bargaining representative, would constitute the writing through which the request to be paid in a different manner is manifest. And again, it's really, there are quite literally hundreds of public schools, districts that pay their paraprofessionals and hourly employees a bargained, agreed-upon, annualized rate. And I have a very hard time believing that that is illegal unless you have further, more modern advice from the Fair Labor Division or the General Counsel, or someone that shows it. Because
Mind if I respond,
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Insofar as you're relying on this particular opinion letter from the Attorney General's office, if you look at the first paragraph and also the title of the document that you're referring to, they're referring to Mass General Law 149, 148. That does not mean that there are not other Mass General laws that come into play with regard to pay. What you're asking for is outside of this particular Mass General Law reference. Furthermore, in the first paragraph, they, and I quote, they're asking about an altering pay schedule. Insofar as this letter is, stating here, it does not define altering pay schedule. It also does not give information about the district that they're responding to, which is Orleans, Mass. So therefore, we have no idea what they're talking about with regard to altering pay schedules, because there is allowances in law that do allow you to alter a pay schedule. In other words, non-exempt employees can sometimes ask for, as they say, they only want to get paid once a month or something. That's not the same as deferring a pay. You still have to be paid in a timely manner pursuant to that law for the hours worked. And also, in the first paragraph of this letter, he makes it very clear, he or she, actually, I think it was she, sorry. She, sorry. That, please be advised that to the extent that this letter has been relied upon for that proposition, so again, it's referring back to altering pay schedule, which again, has not been clearly defined. So we would not rely on this letter insofar as your request regarding the proper application of the law of pay deferral, because
So-
it is not specifically enumerated in this letter.
So just to summarize, your position is that, in this case, Chapter 7149,
40, I think. Chapter
7140,
Yeah,
that Chapter 7140 is the applicable legal standard, and that neither the Wage Act nor the 150E accommodations mentioned here apply, and
To
it is
deferral
not.
of pay, just a deferral of pay.
Okay.
Just a deferral of pay. In other words, I have not ever seen any law outside of this one here, unless you can find one. I've been doing this for 30 years, but I haven't seen one, as far as the deferral of pay.
Sure, and then
And
so...
again, it goes back to the exempt versus non-exempt.
Right, right. And then we sent you a few exemplar contracts and language, and then your opinion would then be that all of those are out of compliance with state law because
What contracts are
they...
That's my, I do know, well, again, I've been doing this for 30 years, and I do know, in fact, it's come out a number of times, even with, statewide, and it has come out a number of times from people that you should seek legal advice. We do know that people do things, and things end up in contracts that do cause problems, that maybe people weren't aware of, maybe not even intentionally, they just weren't aware of the laws at the time, and they do make their way in the contract, and people do things. It doesn't necessarily mean that, that it's to the letter of the law.
Okay, but
That's
so...
just my, so.
So I think we threw you examples like Fitchburg, Uxbridge,
Oh, I know what
Sutton,
you're doing.
Dudley,
Yeah.
Charlton,
Yeah.
Springfield, but,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But your view is that they are all running contrary to the law.
I mean, I think
You know,
I don't know
we
that that's...
we're not concerned with what other people
Yeah,
have in their contracts, you know?
I make comment one way or the other as to
Yeah.
how it ended up in the
Right,
contract.
right.
Well, if you're saying it's not legal, then it's not legal
Yeah.
across the state. And I just want
Yeah.
to be very clear that,
Yeah, we don't, as far as our business, or dealings, whatever, we're not necessarily concerned with what other people are doing. We go by what the law is, and we seek our own,
well, look,
so-
I'm not an attorney. I will reach out again for advice from attorneys on this. But it's important to be really clear here, because should this, rise to a point of dispute, then that's the next step, is saying that all of these other locals are out of compliance with the law, and that's pretty serious. So
That's not
Yes,
my,
I know.
I'm not concerned with any other district in any way, shape, or form, what they're doing. It's
Yeah,
not my.
sure, but if it's
Yeah.
not legal here, it's not legal elsewhere. So we'll review it, we'll speak to our attorneys on it and pull some other issues. Your understanding of the law is completely contrary to ours.
Okay, and then I think the last one that I just already sort of denoted was wages, which we're working on counting. 2. That brings us to, do you mind if I just have a copy of that?
There's no council.
No.
So can we go up?
No, we can do some of it. So Greg and committee, for our wage proposal, you rejected it, you said you're working on a counter. We kept it pretty open. You know, we're requesting that over 3 years, we get these folks up to $30,000 a year minimum. Right now, a significant portion of this unit takes home and caps out at about less than $20,000. Can you talk about your rejection a little bit, or give us sort of some insight into what you're thinking about?
Not quite, only because I think it's better for when we present you our counter, we can kind of go through kind of our thinking and where we are, rather than, it's just, we think for our purposes, because we need to have more discussion on it, kind of premature to kind of address it at this point, that's all.
So it's not a reject, it's a wait.
It's a hold.
It's a hold. I mean, some of these could be a little.
We're still working through.
Yeah, yeah.
Because again, you know, part of the reason that we started with wages was so that we can do our best to sort of collaborate, answer questions, especially because the pay scale here is so straightforward. There's only 2 job types and degrees. There's a lot of things we could work on.
I have 2 pages of other options.
Yeah. So, you know, is that something we can expect next session, so we can start digging into it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm kind of upset to see the reject and not something else with it, but I can understand that this is the biggest part of the contract. We've had multiple conversations since our initial as well, and other things that have come up, so I will wait patiently to see what else happens, but I actually thought James was being a little reserved. I was probably have been a little bit more aggressive, and he kind of towed me in a little bit. So
My mistake, I'm sorry.
I am very disheartened to see that reject, to be honest. I've been here 11 years. I've been in town 28 years, you know?
And it's not a reject, it's a hold.
You're anxious, we understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because we know we have to do a proposal. We just,
Yeah.
we're not ready at this
Yeah.
time
That's-
to
yeah.
present.
Okay, so I'll go through with what's in front of you. So we have a proposal to add holidays in red under work year language, Labor Day if the contractual school starts before President's Day and Patriots Day.
Can I just add one
Yeah,
thing?
yeah.
Just for the sake of, do you have one?
Yes, I do.
What we did here, just for you to see, is I took the current language in the contract, that's what you see in black, and the changes I added in red. So everything there is what's in the existing contract. The highlighted in red is what we're proposing at this time.
Can I just add a
Yeah.
caveat? So we're willing to give you 3 additional holidays. You can pick the holidays, if that helps you out, versus the ones that are here, just to
Yeah, thank you.
level
We-
set, that
Yeah.
that's not whatever holidays you would like to have.
I want you to have the flexibility.
During the school year. you-
But it's a unified, not one person picking different holidays, because that's
Right.
okay.
Right.
Yeah,
We'll-
I'm
Right.
right, so we're open to discussion on that, but we just wanted to list 3.
Right,
So,
no.
to
Get
kind of
that.
start that conversation, so.
Thank you.
And Heather will be during the school year when they're getting paid.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
all right.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Personal leave, so our proposal is to go from .5 to .6 days at the start of the 2-month period.
And I think that was just, that was a cleanup from the original contract from 3 years ago, where we had a discussion where it was .5, and then we had to recalculate it because the math didn't work out, so we had to change it to .6. So we had that discussion, and we're just changing it so it reflects what you actually,
Right, thinking what we're doing,
Yeah.
yeah.
And part of the second part of the personal leave language is on that second page, which is the addition of the red language. So holidays are taken to the first or last week of any school year or before or after long weekends or professional development days, with exceptions only at the discretion. I'm not going to read all of it for you, but I think you get the gist of it. On wages, we are proposing an increase in longevity amounts from $350 to $450 after 15 years, 700, 800 for 20 years, and at 25 years, 1,050 to 1,150. And then on the time increments language, we're proposing an increase. If paras are ABA substitute for a teacher, they'll be compensated from $12.50 to $20 for each half-day, and from $25 to $40 for each full day. And then the last piece is just something that we wanted to sort of just highlight for folks here with respect to kind of the insurance benefits in the district. I'll turn it over to you. Maybe we could walk through this.
I was asked to do this analysis because the health insurance is my bailiwick. And one of the things that we have discussed with both police and fire is just remind the union, please be cognizant that we hold the line at 80-20. And on my watch, we won't leave that. I'll never recommend leaving that. Many other communities have. And they also have much more expensive plans. So as we go forward, thinking about comparing Douglas's wages to the wages of another community, especially those that are really close to us, and I would call out Sutton as an example of a community that has a qualified high deductible plan that is very competitive and similar in design to ours, and what might cost an employee $4,900 in Douglas would cost you close to $12,000 in Sutton. So that's just a backdrop for a deeper conversation. I welcome a conversation if anybody wants to have it, comparing the weeds, right, the deep down to the details, plan design issues that you may have encountered as customers, because we're committed to fixing those to keep our plan competitive. So this is a financial comparison, not a comparison of absolute quality. There are 17 of your members, James, that are participating in our plan. Although it's not quite half of your full represented complement, but it's a fair number. But it's
I'm one of them, but
eye-opening.
it's expensive,
Yeah, it's
even at
eye-opening.
20%. And
It is.
And even at 20%, and being here 11 year, at my step 4, non-degreed, I can't even pay my cell phone bill in my household. I work for health insurance. End of story. There is nothing else my paycheck can pay for. And that's 11 years here. It's kind of sad. But I do appreciate that it's only at 20% because I know that that's hard, and I know that health insurance it can be a huge factor for a lot of people, and we're lucky enough to have what we do have, and it's really not bad insurance. It's not a bad program at all, so at least I can appreciate that part of it. Going to some of the higher ones, I don't think I'd want to pay that much more and have that insurance, to be honest with you, so thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's also worth noting that the insurance in general is also part of why we're so set on the idea of an annualized pay rate, right? When you can expect the same amount of pay in every paycheck, you can budget accordingly.
Oh, yeah.
But when your paycheck fluctuates from a 10-day rate of pay to a 7-day rate of pay to, if the holidays fall poorly, you know, getting paid for 2 days in one paycheck,
There's not enough to cover the insurance.
sometimes it's not enough to cover the
I
insurance.
get those letters.
You have to pay back. And like, we don't ever want a member to be in the position where they're getting a negative paycheck because they're getting paid for 2 days of work, but they still have to pay their regular health insurance deduction. So, you know, the notice is appreciated, but even with only a 20% pay, it still is a hardship for some members at certain times of the year, around the holidays especially, when this comes through. I don't have any questions about these. I don't know if you all do.
Oh,
No, health insurance I got.
did you say at the outset you had some additional proposals?
We do, yeah. You guys okay with us sharing them? Do we need to caucus first, or send them out? We can send them over.
Yeah.
All right. Buddy, got extras.
I mean, in a municipal, you know, it's the same one.
Personal days, because the way it was written.
So,
Because that's the same thing. And then we fix it, but it's still different than what we have here.
yeah. So let's not worry about that part at this point. Okay, so I just want to reiterate again, we've hit this a few times, but our proposals in the first session and into today, the real focus from the membership over and over again has been safety and has been compensation. And the fact that the district has rejected the vast majority of our initial proposals just makes this a little bit more difficult to tackle. Because if we, in a couple of these, you gave us some things to go off of regarding management's rights, FERPA, that we can work off of, but it's going to be hard to move from proposals that the membership has viewed and approved and thinks would help people not get hurt, to figure out ways to repropose that and be productive, essentially, right? You're essentially, without responses to the majority of these, besides rejections, you're essentially asking us to bargain against ourselves for member safety. So I will just reiterate that we are open to different solutions for this. We'll keep working on it. And some of these proposals will address it as well, but we need to keep people safe. Our proposal 5 is in regards to sick leave. Currently, unit members accrue 1 sick day per month. They get 10 days of sick leave per year. Our request is to give individuals 15 days of sick leave, which is the same total number that teachers get at the start of their work year, and then also allow individuals to accumulate up to 150 sick days, which is also the limit that the teachers have. Based on, so we put in a request for the current sick time balance, what sick time folks have used. Based on the information from the district, there have already been over 65 days where members had to go unpaid. Across the whole unit, individual members have had over 65 days where they've been unpaid because they needed sick leave and they didn't have it. And since they only accrue it a month at a time, if you're sick in the beginning of the year, you are disadvantaged compared to being sick at the end of the year. If these members had just received their 15 or even frankly their 10 sick days at the beginning of the year, they wouldn't have had to go without pay. The overall benefit that they got in the year would still have been the same. They would just actually been able to use it. And instead, they had to take unpaid days for illness. And especially, as you all know, probably I'd say the second week of September is when everybody starts getting sick in the building. It just always happens. And if you're a new para, you have 1 day to use. So either you work unpaid, which is a personal problem, or you go for a day unpaid, which is a personal problem, or you come into work sick, which is then a problem for everybody you interact with. And we really want to avoid that by just giving people this benefit up front. Proposal 6 is to create a sick bank. There have been discussions between the district and DESPA as far back as 2022 regarding creating a sick bank. So there is the last page of this document runs through our proposed sick bank language. It's based on the last exchange that the district and the union had. I don't need to go through it word by word. But we are also requesting that the district help kickstart the bank by donating 40 sick days to the bank at its implementation to give it something to go off of. Like I said, currently, we've got more than those days just sort of lost already, that pay lost from members who couldn't use their sick day benefit. We know of at least one para who left, I believe, 2 years ago and had over 100 sick days available to her. If we had perhaps been able to actually get the language done 2 years ago when we started it, she could have moved at least some of those days in. But at this point, we really feel that to be equitable and to make sure this benefit's useful, a donation of days from the district would be incredibly helpful there. And to some extent, frankly, it would address the point that Greg made, that if someone is out on workers' comp, that would be an avenue that is possible for them. They could use the sick bank if one existed. So you shared with, oh yeah.
Ask a clarifying question, and I might.
Sure.
My brain is there any length of time that they have, if there were to be a sick bank, is there any length of time they'd have to be employed with the district in order to use it?
Not in our proposal. So our proposal is that when a member comes to work for Douglas, they are automatically enrolled in the bank unless they decide to opt out of it. And then they have to donate 1 day of their sick leave to the bank. And then every year thereafter, they would donate 1 of their sick days to the bank until it reaches its cap. And then if a member leaves, and I think this was proposed by the district, that originally that they can donate some days, but only up to 10 to the bank. But it's just, you come in, you get it. And then in order to use it, you would have to show that you have a serious illness and that you're out of your own sick days.
Okay.
We also think that just giving people their sick days at the beginning of the year would also mean that the bank doesn't get depleted as much because people just will have their days and they can use them.
Thank you. I was just more worried, I'm thinking about the person that's been here 11 years versus the person that's been here for 5 days. I just
Yeah.
wanted to know how that all works.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you for that. So Proposal 7 is our proposal regarding substituting. Your proposal had been to increase it to $20 per half day or $40 for a full day. That works out to $5.70 per hour. Our proposal is instead that if a unit member substitutes for a teacher, they'll be compensated by an additional $15 per hour, rounded up to the nearest 15-minute increment. Currently, folks are tracking their hours in 15-minute increments per the contract. The substitute will not be responsible for designing curriculum or assessments, and the district will make best efforts to ensure that substitution doesn't interfere with the member's regular duties. So if someone gets pulled to sub, it can be a difficult work sometimes. Sometimes they get pulled away from their regular job. We'd like to minimize that as much as possible, and an hourly rate is just sort of the fairest and the cleanest way to do that. Proposal 8 is regarding discipline. Currently, the discipline language is just that discipline may be imposed for good cause. We'd like to add that the administration shall not discipline a staff member publicly, and any discipline enacted shall be progressive. So if someone's receiving discipline, it doesn't happen in the middle of a hallway, it doesn't happen in front of a classroom full of students, it happens in private, which my understanding is that generally it does anyway. And that progressive just means that except in serious cases, discipline starts low and then ramps up, Paul comes in with hair that's against the dress code, Paul gets a verbal warning, and then a written warning, and then something else. He doesn't just get booted because of his crazy colored hair. Proposal 9 is regarding bus duty. So currently, if an individual volunteers to do special education bus duty, they get paid their hourly rate. We would like to just change that to a flat rate for everyone. The specific amount, we want to link to the conversations that we have with wages. We don't have a specific number there yet, but we just think that if anyone does that duty, it should be worth the same rate. Additionally, we want the district to provide training yearly and as needed to staff who work bus duty, just so that they can support their students' needs. And essentially, depending on which bus you're riding, which students you're working with, there can be really sort of dramatically different needs for those students. And if that is communicated clearly to the staff who are doing bus duty, it's just a better experience for everyone. And did you want to sort of talk about that a little bit?
So last year, at the beginning of the school year, I was not really that familiar with some of those students. And this one particular student comes tearing down the hallway, and I stop him in the hallway, and I'm like, hey, buddy, you need to slow down, you need to stop. Wait, all right? Take it easy, take it easy. And I looked at his face, and I went, uh-oh. And then he took off, and he went to the classroom. I went into the classroom. I asked the teacher who he was. I go back, I look to see who's his liaison, or whatever the case may be. And I could just see in his face in the classroom. And he under his breath, la, 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 la. So I went and I looked. Bad choice on my part. Should have found out who the kid was first. I go into the classroom at the end of the class. I ask the student, come with me, come into my room. Of course, I have a teacher with me. And I apologized to him for correcting his unacceptable behavior in the hallway at that point. I realized after I spoke to him and the look on his face that he had a behavior. And when I went into the classroom to find out where he was, he had a behavior. And he wasn't going to redirect himself. I knew if I let him go, he was going to trigger in the next block. I had to do something. So I pulled him. I apologized. I said, this is why I did it. Put the blame on myself. Student deflated. He was fine. Went on with the rest of his day. If you don't know the students and you observe some kind of behavior sometime, or if you're a new para who has never done this before, you would know. Like, you would have said, oh, look at that kid's face, now he's mad at me. But I knew that look on his face that he was going to be triggered, and this wasn't going to go well. But that's because I've been there doing this for so long. And if you're a para and haven't had that experience yet, I just see that on the bus, it could go wrong. And that's my fear with that, is that we don't want to monitor anyone else on the bus, and seeing that, I mean, any of us that work with these kids, we know when you know your kids. There's certain things that you just learn. And in this case, that was my example of it could have went bad.
And that goes really into our next proposal as well, which is just that whenever a student is on a behavioral plan, a safety plan, or similar, unit members will be informed of the full details of the plan before they work with the student. In the bus duty specifically, it's a pretty high focus for us, just because you're in a bus. You only have so much support when you're in a bus with a student there. But beyond that, the hallway interactions, the general classroom interactions, we've had a lot of reports of staff being pulled to work with specific students, having their assignments partially changed, and finding out as they meet the student some of the supports, or perhaps even finding them out afterwards. I know that we had a student right before break where there was a pretty serious concern that the union reached out to the district about regarding literal threats of violence. And our report is that the staff who worked with that student when they got back into the classroom did not have a full understanding of the students' workings and the students' behavioral plans when they were in that room with them. So it's a communication issue. There are really talented staff in this unit and out of it that are identifying what kids need, how to support them, what triggers them, how to back them down if they're triggered. Again, especially really here for kids with aggression outbursts. But if those tells and that information doesn't go to the staff member in advance, it doesn't help.
Just for clarification, and I think I'm understanding, obviously, if you're a para and ABA working in a program, you know or you should know who's on a plan, who's not. Is the concern with this addition where you might get pulled one day or the last half hour to go into a class and cover, and you may not know the full details? Okay.
Or get pulled to sub for a
Well,
day
yeah, I
because
just used the
somebody's
idea.
out,
Or-
or,
We
yeah.
can list 100 examples,
Right, but-
it's basically when you get pulled.
Right, when they get pulled or
Understood.
even the bus, because I know Greg's made some changes with how things are done with the bus, and I don't think I've ridden it since that's happened. That's changing. But
I get it.
a lot of those times, we don't know what the triggers are with those kids either, you know, and especially like, if someone says, hey, can you ride the elementary bus? I don't know these kids at all. I'm gonna have, you know, they're gonna be, you know,
And to
it's
build on
important.
that, sometimes the bus drivers will tell you that
Right.
you need to watch this, or not let a kid do certain things. And then when you try to enforce what the bus driver's saying, now you find out on the other end that that was not the case.
Right.
And we don't want to overstep the kids' rights either.
Right.
Can I ask what are you looking, because it said provide advanced training in yearly. So what exactly are you not getting now for training that you would like additionally for training? And if that's, I want to know what we're not doing now that's not working and what you are looking for in the future.
So, the district shall provide advanced training or yearly as needed to all staff who work bus duty to ensure that they can support their students and needs. I've been here and I've asked for CPI training for 10 years. I still don't have it.
We put out for CPI training, my understanding, since I've been here, we send a blanket email out to say, who's interested in CPI training? And
Never
have
get
people
that
sign up
email.
for it.
I didn't, and I know that I have, it actually, CPI training was what was on my evaluation for last year that I should get.
But let's not talk about evaluation, but
But
yeah.
I'm just saying that it's something I've requested for 10 years.
Didn't we send an email out this year?
We had the building principals identify
Identify, okay.
Okay.
specific staff that
It was-
needed CPI.
So it's not
Put out to
us.
people who they
Okay.
want, yeah.
Is there a
So, just to clarify, we had limited space, and we needed the people who were working directly with some of the students. Before the end of this year, we are going to open it up for other staff, because we've met all the staff that required it right away.
So, that's always been the issue,
Yeah.
and it's always been the issue why I've never gotten CPI trained, because there's never been an opening. My concern being that I was doing bus duty. And I was doing it on and at that point, I was doing the elementary and the high school buses. I tend to do one bus versus another bus because I'm not 100% comfortable with my knowledge to ride the other one. I will in certain circumstances. But, and that's what, in regards to yearly training.
But
And
this
it-
is
I'm just wondering, does the membership have a preference after school, during school? What does the membership want in terms of, and you don't have to answer that now, but if we're going to provide training, if we're going to
That's-
continue to provide training, we want to provide it at a time. I know we always try to provide.
And as far as training or, we don't, and that's the other thing, is I know the HIPAA for these students needs to be protected as well. But even like a cheat sheet, even for the bus driver, you know?
Yeah.
And for us to have on a clipboard or whatever, so that we know, you know,
A one-page or transportation.
exactly. It doesn't need to be specific, but at least an idea. Most of us can read between the lines.
Yeah, and for,
Right.
just for a lot of this, we'll come back with some more specific training asks. One of the topics that we're working on for the next session is a couple PD things anyway, so we'll include that, so thank you. But I think that this piece is really important, right? That just because training has been offered to some staff, doesn't mean that all staff have been able to actually access that.
And I just want to make sure that I was clear on what the issue was, because I know we've offered CPI training at least once or twice a year in the past 4 years. I think 2 years ago, we did it over the summer for staff members who were interested. So but you just never made the cut. Or some people never make the cut because we're prioritizing students, paras and ABAs who work with a certain population of student versus all paras.
Well, and that's where-
And teachers as well.
And that's where the issue really comes in, right?
Yeah,
Because
like
like,
that.
you might have an assignment, but again, staff get injured, staff get sick,
Look,
staff have to get out,
point
you
well
work
made.
with another one. And just because you don't think that you're gonna need CPI training next year, that might change a week into the school year, that might change 3 months into it, and there's a real gap that we've got there.
Yeah, we offered it 3 times already this year, and with more coming up
During school, after school?
during school.
Okay, great. And when were those offered?
I don't have the dates off the top of my head, I'm sorry, but
Okay.
I can look that up.
Like September-ish?
Yes,
September was one of them. 'cause,
September
yeah,
was one.
September.
We did one recently, maybe a month ago,
November, and then January, I believe.
Okay.
Yep.
Roughly,
with an ish.
ish.
Yeah, that's,
Alright.
I'm,
Don't quote us
What
on
I'm
the
saying.
exact date.
So, I mean, it seems like there's a real space that we can be very specific in that moving forward, so that's helpful. And I'll say just on our last one, Proposal 11, personal days, you had a different proposal, personal leave. Our understanding is that the district had actually agreed, I want to say a year and a half ago, to modify, update the personal language such that instead of doing .5 days, it would be 1 personal day that became effective October 1, and then 2 additional personal days effective January 1.
And I think the reason we changed to the .6 is that with the .5, you would never be able, the calculation, you would never accrue those days. If you did the .5, you would never accrue 2 additional personal days by January 1. So we changed the calculation from .5 to .6 to reflect.
That's not what I had in my original notes.
So, yeah, so we
Yeah,
can.
I just sent an email on that to everybody when it came up. And everybody was fine with it because it was just a simple calculation thing.
Yeah, we had that it was, that the language was just replaced with 1 personal day received effective October 1, and then 2 days effective January 1.
There was nothing that was changed, except it was just a calculation thing. Like I said, I sent an email to you guys.
Yeah, both
you
things could be
reviewed it.
true.
Everybody was fine with it.
Right.
Yeah, but, accrual, as we talked about with sick days, right?
Accruals, yeah.
Accrual is very different from just granting the days. So, we've got an unsigned copy here. We'll see if we can pull a signed copy of this MOA. Courtney, if you could send us that email that you sent to staff about it.
Not to all staff. I don't think I sent it to all staff.
Well, then,
No, to you and I think John, or whoever was
All
the
right.
president at the time, or,
I'll go back and take a look
We
then.
can revisit this.
Yeah, we can revisit this.
But the point is that you're looking for
Yeah.
the days up front versus the accrual.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if.
I can't read that from here.
We'll,
sorry.
We'll get it to you, we'll make a copy.
Let me scan.
Yeah. If it hasn't already been agreed upon, we're looking for the days up front as opposed to the accrual, yes. So that's the sum of our proposals for today.
I think we should caucus.
Yeah, you want to say 20?
Just check in.
Check in?
It's okay.
John just sent me a
Well,
text.
let's just,
Yeah.
it's fine.
There's a lot.
So, I'll also say that it would be very helpful for us if you have, again, other ideas regarding the safety stuff. We don't want to just be, re-proposing the same thing you already rejected repeatedly, but we also, again, want to get stuff in the contract here so that people know what benefits they have, what the procedures are, and what's going on. Whatever you guys have would be appreciated. I've got a completely separate issue that I just want to bring up quickly, just because we're here and we're not at the end yet. We had a conflict come up, I had a conflict come up for the next session, for the 19th,
Is that April 19th?
March 19th.
March, we're in March, that's.
We are in March, yeah. Would it be possible to move that 1 day prior to March 18th, to the Monday instead of the Tuesday?
That's our next scheduled meeting, correct?
Yes.
Do we have a third one scheduled out?
Yes, in the beginning of April.
We have April, okay, I remember the conversation we had on April Fool's Day.
Yes.
Yes.
And then,
Right.
do you want, while we're at caucus, to look at another date
Yeah.
after April?
That would be great, and we'll take a look as well.
So 18th at the same time as it would have been on the 19th.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in the caucus.
Okay.
Just easier to do it there, I think.
Great, thanks.
Okay.
All right,
Thanks.
all right, thank you so much. At the caucus, we'll text you. Our reps, our caucus room is down the hall. Folks are welcome to come on down.
We're good? Okay, all right. Do like housekeeping stuff first, just because it's easy.
Sure.
So 18th is good.
Okay.
We have a committee member that will need to leave by 5:45.
Okay.
So, bit of a hard stop there, but I don't think that would preclude us from sort of rounding it out.
Okay, yeah.
So that's good. We also have a potential date for a third meeting.
Okay.
We looked at April 24th, same time.
Yeah, we'd
That is
actually looked at April 10th to try for the week before break. Would that work for you all? It's also a Wednesday.
I can't, I have another negotiation session that
Okay.
afternoon, that same time.
24th works for me.
Works for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can do some reconfiguring.
Okay. That'll be 4 to 6 again?
Yeah,
Okay.
here, obviously, so.
Yep.
Okay.
So that
Um,
means, just to confirm, our next bargaining session will be March 18th?
Yeah, so we have 3 lined up. So we
Yep.
have 3/18, April 1st.
Yep.
And April 24th now.
Yep, and those will all be 4 o'clock.
Yeah, yeah.
Great. Okay.
So we had some really good discussion on a number of the things that you guys had proposed, tonight. We don't have specific counters, but just a couple of sort of things. So we'll come back to you the next session. We need to look at some of the detailed sick bank language, although we're, open to discussing that.
Okay.
And we'll have a counter for you on the health and safety. We really heard what you're saying in terms of that being an important issue for you all. So we're going to put some thought into kind of a counter on the language for that we can provide to you.
Okay. Yeah, and we talked a little bit with the members who were here, and also just generally, we're going to be reaching out to the membership, to see if they have other specific requests along that too, so.
Okay. So we'll have that for you. We'll have our wage proposal for you as well.
Okay. Awesome, thank you. Anything else?
No.
Okay, so similarly, we ran over some of the issues that we were discussing today. One of the things that just came up immediately, so again, we'll have a full response next time on professional development and training. One of the things came up immediately was CPR training, Heimlich maneuver training. Another thing that, in my understanding, is offered at times throughout the district, but that doesn't mean that all staff can necessarily get to it. And we've heard that, and I think at least one of these situations is resolved, but we had a time in the elementary school recently where there was just one para watching lunch, so one para in the lunchroom with like 100 kids who then needed to go figure out how to get an administrator into the room to support them for that because someone had gotten pulled for another duty. I think, Ellen, you said that similar thing happened at the middle school?
She's at the elementary.
Elementary school, sorry.
High school.
High school too?
Yep, we were in with our kids, because again, we're separate, and there was nobody else in the CAF with everybody else. So if one of our kids went into a behavior, there was nothing.
And that's the sort of thing where it doesn't seem to be standard process right now. It happens because people get pulled around and there are holes left. We're not sure if that's something we want to bring up with specific contract language, but it's one of the issues that came up that we really wanted folks to be aware of. And then, regarding a couple of your proposals today, specifically about the work year with the holidays and then the longevity increase, we just appreciate that you put that forward in both cases. We're going to hold on both of those because, especially with the wages, we think that there are a lot of interesting ways that people integrate either longevity payments, longevity stipends, or holidays into paraprofessional pay to address the issue of uneven paychecks that we've been talking about. So, appreciated, but we are going to hold on that moving forward. And then we'll have some other responses moving forward. I think that is it. Did I miss anything?
It's basically 6 o'clock on the nose, so you did well.
Wow, delightful. So, Greg, I already sent you our proposals digitally.
I will send them back, ours to you, yes.
Great.
If we could make a habit of that, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thanks everybody
Yeah,
for
of
being
course,
here
yeah.
tonight. And we'll see you on the 18th now, on the Monday. We're excited to see the wage counter, safety counter, and we'll be bringing some other proposals as well.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody. And thanks, everybody at home.
Procedurally, right, we have to close?
Yeah, we just,
You gotta do the
I
thing.
move to close the school committee meeting on March 4th at 6 o'clock for the budget committee subcommittee
Negotiations.
negotiation. I knew it. I was gonna screw it
You're
up.
getting it.
At 6 o'clock. Can you write that down for me for now?
Robert rules is a pain. You
At
got it.
6 PM. Sorry.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.